Toon's perspective. My heart is racing, and I feel my sprinting muscles tighten, involuntarily, as the call waits to be answered. I often have to explain to people that just because my species has the greatest resolution to our perception of time, of any known sapient, it does not mean that I perceive the world in slow motion, the same way that when I maximize the frames in all footage, it doesn't cause it to run slower. Right now, however, this moment does seem to be stretching for an eternity. My apprehension is utterly overwhelming. I squeeze Victor's solid hand with two of mine, a squeeze that he returns, gently enough not to fracture my metacarpals. The call is answered by a stunning, round-faced, freckled, Levantine Neanderthal woman with long straight hair. She looks at Victor and, with a broad grin, says, "Vicky, how's it going?" in a dialect of English which is identical to his. He smiles fondly back and answers, "Not too bad, T. Not too bad at all." She smirks. "I'll bet. Given honours by foreign planets must be nice. This is what, the 7th time that's happened?" He waves his hand in the negative. "6th." She laughs. "Only 6 times. Well, when you're getting too big for your boots." Deploying an English idiom I've not come across, but am inferring to mean to become arrogant from context. She turns to Fluffy and, for 7.4 seconds, makes cooing noises in infant-directed speech. Fluffy yowls excitedly and paws at the screen. Finally, she turns her attention to me and, smiling warmly, asks Victor, "So, you're going to introduce me to your lady friend, Vicky?" Smiling just as warmly, Victor uses his right hand to gesture to me. "T, this is Toon, Elf, my partner. Toon, this is Treg, Tea Leaf. The closest thing I've got to a sister." "Ugh," she interrupts, seeming to be feigning woundedness. "You're saying that you don't think of me as your precious big sister, Vicky?" Victor smiles and rolls his eyes. "You're like 3 weeks older than me. We'd be twins, surely, if we was going to be siblings." She closes her eyes, turns her face up and to her left, and answers, 3 weeks is 3 weeks, Vicky. I'm your big sis, and you've got to listen to me." Yeah, answers Victor. It's very clear this is not the first time they've run through exactly this tongue-in-cheek dispute. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Dr. Leaf," I proffer nervously. She bursts into raucous laughter, and I'm momentarily terrified into thinking that I've already made a fool of myself, despite only having spoken 8 words to her. She says, "You can call me Treg, sweetheart, or T if you like. I'm only Dr. Leaf to folk I meet in my clinic. Can I call you Toon, or would you prefer Elf?" Toon is fine. I prefer that, Treg," I say anxiously. She turns to address Victor. "Your girlfriend's a real cutie. Might have to hop a transport out and steal her away from you." "You've already got your own cutie, hands off," he jokes, shielding me with his arms. Smugly she answers, "One can never have enough cuties." Victor sighs and, to me, says, "She ain't actually poly, by the way, Toon. She just likes teasing about it." "I ain't poly to your knowledge, Vicky. You can't assume I'm monogamous just because I've only got one husband, so far," she grins. "And the reason you've kept it from me for 30 years, if you were?" he asks, turning to her with a sardonically raised eyebrow. She grins, causing me to notice that, while her face is much more sapiensoid-looking than Fran's, her teeth look every bit as Neanderthaloid. "Simple," she answers. "Whether I'm poly or not, you not knowing is much more fun." He shakes his head exasperatedly. I have a question," I say tentatively. "Why does Victor call you T if you've known each other since childhood?" She smiles. "That's because Vicky was the first one to call me T. Was very pleased with himself for figuring out that the name I chose for myself abbreviates to Tea Leaf. And I love myself some hot tea juice." "In fairness, T, it ain't like you figured that out," teases Victor. "Yeah, probably would have chosen a different name if I had, wouldn't I?" she shoots back before continuing. "When I went to King's, I told all my friends to call me T, so by the time they had to give me an epithet, they'd almost forgotten that T weren't actually my name. Till I reminded them, that is." Here, Victor asks, "Lloyd and Chelsea going to be joining us, T?" "Chelsea's not. Lloyd's just on his way back from taking her to his sister's in Lambris, where she's going to get spoiled rotten all weekend. He should have already been back, but he says he had a bit of trouble hailing a capsule. Almost told you to hold off on calling, but figured I'd just talk to you till he gets back," she shrugs. Victor gives a nod of, "Fair enough." "Lloyd's your husband, Treg? Chelsea's your daughter?" I ask. She smiles and nods. 2 for 2. You go, girlfriend. I'd like to introduce you to Chelsea, but, well, hell have no fury like Rhiannon Fire Morgan denied time with her niece. She then leans forward and narrows her eyes. I have to say, I'm impressed you managed not to ask about my eyes and hair for this long. What's she talking about? What should I be asking about her eyes and hair? Her hair's straight, which is quite unusual for a Neanderthal, but not massively. Not so much that it would be a burning question in anyone's mind. But what else could it be? She leans back and studies the highly confused expression I'm sure I'm wearing. Victor tells me you were raised on a Terran world. You're not at all curious about whether a girl with carmine hair and lime green eyes had them modded that way? Victor explains before I can. She can't see those colours, T. I have total monochromancy, I add. My cradle world is an eyeball world, so there wasn't enough light to discern colour in my species' evolutionary history. Really? She asks, addressing me while leaning forward with a fascinated expression on her face. I nod nervously. And, if you don't mind my asking, what's with the glowing eyes? T! Chides Victor crossly. I put my right hand on his left shoulder and say, Victor, it's fine. I'm not offended. I don't mind answering. He looks at me for a few moments before seeming to be satisfied, and I'm truly not upset. I turn back to Treg's freckled face, waiting expectantly for me to account for arguably the most striking non-Terran feature of my appearance. I start. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I've heard from some of the Don exiles on Nova Ferroscandia that her eyes glow for non-verbal communication while stalking prey in our evolutionary past. They let us do things like signal where we were in relation to the prey, which way we were facing, the animal we're intending to go after, etc. She nods engrossed. And what about the animals you were hunting? Could they not have used your eyes to spot you? They could, I respond, but bioluminescence is quite common among Don-Ulan fauna and flora, so it wasn't as much of a disadvantage to stealth as you'd think. The advantages of silent communication in the dark must have outweighed any disadvantage to stealth, if that is the mechanism by which my species gained our glowing eyes. And? She scoots forward in her seat, fixing me with an intent expression. Why is bioluminescence so common on your cradle? I shrug. I'm afraid I don't know about that. I didn't grow up there. There, unfortunately, wasn't a Don school teacher or biology specialist among those of us marooned in Terran space. She seems here to realize that she's accidentally steered me into a sensitive area, and she says, Oh, I'm sorry, sweetheart. I didn't mean to pry. I was just curious. It's okay, Treg. Like I said, I was happy to answer. I smile. Well, even so, she starts before trailing off. Have you seen Maya recently, T? Says Victor, with the force of someone intentionally changing the subject. She nods with a crooked smile. Yeah, saw her a few weeks ago. We had tea. Well, I had tea. She simulated having tea. It was nice, but, well, you know Maya. She's always viewed child rearing as more science than art. It's clear she ain't actually that bothered about seeing me. I don't know about that, challenges Victor. Don't the fact that she agreed to meet mean that she wanted to meet? Like, even if she only agreed for your sake, and not because she'd get anything out of seeing you? Isn't that his own kind of love? Like, if she's seen you because she don't want you to get upset by her refusing, that means she cares about upsetting you, don't it? She nods concedingly. I never said that she didn't love us. In her own way, it's just that her ways of loving and caring are a bit clinical. Clinical? Queries Victor. Yeah, you remember the nutrition schedule she had us on growing up? Answers Treg. Yep. What about 'em? I reckon being on those schedules is why we're both close to as tall as we can be without getting gene therapy. Also got me fantastically predisposed to the habits needed to maintain peak physical fitness. I said it was clinical, didn't say it didn't work. It worked brilliantly for you, at least. I gained 20 kilograms as soon as I was at uni and making my own food choices. With a wry smirk, Victor counters. Oh, I'm sure the weight you gained at uni had everything to do with the nutrition schedules you've been on up to that point, and nothing at all to do with the fact that beginning the second year you started dating a baker, who by your account is also a fantastic cook, more generally. Then moved in with him, then married him. It must be the lack of self-control you had from always being prescribed what to eat and not the unlimited supply of snacky treats. That's... she starts, but then cuts herself off, looking away from us. Ah, speak of the devil. She switches the camera to a hollow, stands and walks to a pair of clear doors, leading out onto a lush balcony garden beyond which is a breathtaking view of the London skyline. from what looks like well over a kilometre up. The city is a sparse forest of sky piercers, one of which Treg presumably lives in, covered in the profuse foliage of balcony gardens and parks, and towering over the much lower buildings filling the spaces between them. I have never seen such a populous city as London looks to be. The largest city on Ferroscandia only has about 7 million people, and while I have visited larger cities since I left, London has easily 10 times that many. At least, that's what it looks like. A small transport capsule is approaching Treg's balcony at a decent clip. As it draws closer, the capsule wheels to the side and drifts to the safety railing, deploying a ramp over it once it has drawn level. Down the ramp comes a slender sapiens with pale skin, short dark hair and a friendly smile displayed across his soft-featured face. "Look who it is," he beams with a bouncing, melodic cadence, in an accent that I'm taking to be Welsh. "How are you doing, champ?" he continues, with feigned awkwardness. "I am doing well. How are you doing, sport?" responds Victor, matching the pretense of uneasiness. Seeing me looking at him confused, in his periphery, Victor turns and explains, as the other two make their way back to the sofa. That's a little in-joke Lloyd and I have tune. The first time T introduced me to him on a holochat, we talked for a bit, but then she went to the loo and left us alone. Long moment of silence, then he goes, "So!" And it was so awkward that I burst out laughing, then he burst out laughing. Since then, pretending to be super uncomfortable with each other's been our thing, with a chuckle. I nod my understanding. It's nice that Victor's been able to form an in-joke with a man he's never met in person. Right, so does one of you two want to introduce me to the twitty next to Victor, and then she can tell us all about herself? Then I'd like Victor to tell me what has been occurring on the latest episodes of my favourite soap, Victor on the Bright Plume. I have brought popcorn, grins the jocular man, producing an empty cardboard container and a bag of popcorn and showing them to his wife, causing her chest to bounce up and down in mirth. Victor introduces me, and then I tell them a little about myself. I don't go into quite as much depth as I did in my interview last year, but I'm sure they're not having much trouble filling in the gaps. I'm asked a few embarrassing questions, such as what exactly I find attractive about Victor, but mostly we just have a pleasant chat. After the couple and I have been suitably acquainted, Victor is prompted to recount the latest happenings aboard the ship, which he does, animatedly, as Treg and Lloyd snack on the popcorn that Lloyd brought. "You're joking!" reacts Treg. "Popcorn frozen halfway to her mouth." "Nope," negates Victor. "Mage ended things with the Shings and immediately got engaged to Felicity." "His ex, the Felis? The one that hates him? The one who's always chopsing him?" inquires Lloyd incredulously. Victor shrugs. "Apparently she didn't hate him so much as we thought. Complete attitude shift since then. She won't stop clinging to him now. I don't think I'd ever heard a Felis purr before recently." "That's wild. People are complicated," opines Treg, rubbing her temples as if the strain of processing what she'd been told is causing her a mild headache. "How are the Shings taking it?" "They don't seem distraught. I've seen them a few times since. When New was fixing my shattered ulna the other day, I asked her about it and how she was doing, how Nan was doing. She basically said that they always knew it wasn't going to last forever, and while she wouldn't have chosen to end it so soon, she's not upset that it ended. Very emotionally mature," says Victor. "I don't like how casual you are about broken bones, Victor," says his sort of sister. "You get a stern talking to if you kept coming back to my clinic with breaks." Victor gives an apologetic shrug. "Breaks sorta ain't avoidable with the training I'm doing, T." Treg looks as if she's about to say more before her husband interrupts. "Sorry to say, but we've got plans, so we've got to go, now in a minute. It was bloody tidy to meet you, Toon." "Yes, a pleasure. Perhaps next time we see you on a call will be before Vicky's therapist sets her for him as homework again," smirks Treg, causing Victor to look abashed. "I very much enjoy meeting you two, too. Likewise, I hope to see you again soon," I smile back. We all wave our goodbyes and the call ends. Victor turns his holopad to me. "Could you just confirm that it is an ended call for me?" I look. "It is an ended call, Victor," I say with a worry upward curl of my mouth. "Are you making fun of me? It wasn't you who didn't end the call last time." He shakes his head emphatically. "Nope, not making fun. The fact that it was you last time don't mean it can't be me this time." I smile warmly at the man of my dreams and the love of my life before leaning over the arms of our chairs and planting a kiss on the sides of his face, his cheek warm beneath my lips. "You're too kind, Victor. I don't like it," I tease. He gives a mirthful exhale and looks down. "So," I prompt, "are you ready to show me the other part of your therapy homework, Victor?" He turns his face toward me, pressing his forehead to mine. "If you're sure you're ready, Toon, I'm ready." "Victor, I'm absolutely ready, but, well, didn't you tell me that Arcanath said you oughtn't to push yourself? Might introducing me to Treg and Lloyd be enough for this week?" He nods. "She did, at first, only suggest introducing you. This part was my idea. I just don't want you feeling like there's a part of my life you ain't welcome in, Toon. I want you to know that you're welcome, anytime you're ready. Though, obviously, if you ain't ready..." "I'm ready," I interrupt with finality. He searches my eyes for 7/12 of a second, before nodding and getting up. He makes his way to our bed, where, at some point during the call, Fluffy settled, up against the headboard. He reclines against her side in a sitting position. I follow and lie against him, such that he can see over my shoulder. He reaches around me with his two bulky arms and knots them across my stomach. I would have liked to offer to be the big spoon for him, but given his density and overall weight, that's an offer I couldn't make good on, as discomfort would leave the time I could tolerate being crushed unacceptably low. I settle for placing my lower hands in the tops of his thighs, and my uppers against his external obliques. Before we start, do you want to wear your translator? Most of it's in pretty thick Lalans. You might have trouble." I think for a moment, looking across the room to where I left my translator on the desk. I wonder if it's worth getting up from my comfortable position. I'll try without. Maybe I won't need it, I decide. "All right. Let me know if you change your mind. Ready?" he asks. I nod. "Hollow, play save video file 1 to the far wall," he instructs. The wall is immediately adorned with the likeness of two sitting humans, both of whom were dead, years before I was born. The slim woman has pale skin, her soft-featured face which makes her look a lot like Victor, the most voluminous head of long curly hair I've ever seen on any creature, and wears the subtlest of smiles, bereft of any joy. The man is tall and bulky looking with dark hair, dark eyes and a sheer angular face wearing an expression that looks like irritation or disgust, but upon closer inspection may just be neutral for him. His arms are folded, defensively across his front. I'm struck by just how young they both look. It does make sense. They were half a decade younger than I am now, but still, the thought of having to record something like this when you're scarcely more than a child. The dazzlingly beautiful woman raises a hand in a brief greeting gesture and speaks somberly to camera. "Hey, Victor. My name's Private Esme Reed, and I'm your ma." She gestures to the dark-haired man. "This is Private Oscar Taylor, your dar, and this right here." She gestures to her stomach. "This is you. If you're seeing this, Victor, it means that we didn't make it, but you did. You're still alive, and you're old enough to ken what you're looking at. What I'm saying to you, know this, Victor. I haven't seen your face yet, and I already love you more than life itself. I didn't want anything more than to be there, to see your first steps, the first time you lose your tooth, the first time you get in a rammy school, the first time you bring home a lassie, or maybe a laddie, or maybe you tell us that you're not interested in either. I wish I could cry as I watch you give it to uni. I want that more than I wish my ma and da could have done that for me. No, I can't, before we were going to be fighting for, I didn't. But I do now. We are going to be fighting to save we can. We come to save a world where we can live the rest of our lives. We're going to be fighting to make a world where you can grow up safe. And, well, as you've seen this, it looks like we succeeded. And that we didn't make it to be there with you. I'm so sorry we couldn't be there for you. Gonna be mirror fara for you, and I can just vid diary is a substitute for that, but it's the best we had to offer. I wish we had more to give you, Victor. I'm sorry, Victor, could you pause? He pauses and asks, "What's wrong? Do you need your translator after all?" "No, it's not that," I sniffle. "I'm just having a little trouble seeing." My watery eyes are refracting the luminescence of my own iris back into my pupils, turning the footage into a blinding light show.